This episode of Pick Up the Six podcast is brought to you by our friends at Mud Gear. We have an awesome new partnership to tell you about, and we love Mud Gear because they're made tougher. Just like you guys, it's outdoor gear for the outdoor athlete. You can get it dirty, you can sweat in it, it's all good, and I absolutely love it. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see me rocking Mud Gear shirts and shorts on that Blue Ridge relay, and it performed really, really well. We've got a great deal going for our listeners. You go to mudgear.com, you use the code PUT6, that's the number 6, PUT and the number 6, and you're saving 15% off today. Great shirts, great shorts, awesome socks. They've got a bunch of different kinds of socks. They've got full knee-high socks for compression. They've got running socks. They've got mountain biking socks. They've got rucking socks. It's all good. Go pick it up today. It's made tougher. It's Mud Gear, and it's 15% off at mudgear.com using the code PUT6. Go get after it, pick up some of their stuff, and help support a great company that we love to partner with. On May 11th, 2005, Josh Appel graduated from medical school. 1 month later, and he was in Afghanistan, and by the 28th of June, he was part of the now infamous rescue of the Lone Survivor Marcus Luttrell. We revisit Operation Red Wings from Josh's perspective, including incredible acts of service before self along the way. This is Pick Up the Six podcast. Josh, it's an honor and a privilege. Thanks for joining the show, man.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've been working to make this happen for a while. I'm thrilled to do it. Guys, it needs not a lot of explanation if you've been riding with us from the beginning, and many of you have, and we're just so incredibly grateful for that. But we always find a way back to Red Wings. We have that here. Our second guest of the show, Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Spanky Peterson, who by the sheer grace of God, we got connected, and Spanky shared the whole story of that just incredible journey and an incredible loss, but also incredible resilience. So it's been well documented here on these airwaves, the ins and outs of Red Wings. We had Matt Brady recently joining us, who flew that Chinook, that Night Stalker, that dropped the 4 guys off to start the op, right?
I just met him. Yeah. In fact.
He's incredible. So
Yeah.
Josh, I'm just grateful, man, to have you here today to talk about your part of that incredible story. And I just lean in for it with our listeners because it's just become an important remembrance for us here. And I just feel a sense of duty to the men that obviously lost their lives on that day. And just, we keep sharing the story here. And so you guys might be like, Brian, that's enough Red Wing stuff. I don't know that we'll ever stop here. It's something important.
Yeah.
For us, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And I think everybody's perspective is different. Like Spanky brings that pilot perspective from it, and same with the Chinook flyer that, they bring that perspective to you, to the story as well. And my perspective's a little different, right? Because I was on the ground, and I've been in these lectures with Spanky, and he's very mechanical, and he's like, we flew the dog bone in and right. The spooky and the guy.
That's
and
right.
Like,
trailer spooky. That's right.
Yeah, right. The trailer spooky. But from my perspective, we were in the back of the helicopter, right? So we were just passengers for most of that trip until it was time to go to work. I'd like to back up on the intro. Let
me set the stage a little bit. Let's do this. Let me set the stage a little bit, right? And then because I want to talk about how you got to that point, right? And then share sort of what you saw, right? And what happened. But here's the context, right? It's late June 2005. The war in Afghanistan is on, and you've got these 4 Navy SEALs who are essentially the front end of an operation to go identify, right, and take out some high-level bad guys. And these guys have to go in, right, get recon up, get comms up, put eyes on the bad guy, and then they're basically going to call the rest of the cavalry in, I think, to do work. And essentially, as you guys remember, and if you've seen the movie Lone Survivor, there's a lot of things that did or did not happen. There's a lot of accuracies and sort of the big picture idea. The 4 get in, they get compromised early in that operation. They are unable to get the help that they need, and they have to essentially fight off a bunch of dudes on their own. And through that, 3 Americans are killed: Michael Murphy, Danny Dietz, and Matt Axelson.
Correct.
The lone survivor, then Marcus Luttrell, who spends some time, only a couple of days, really, by the time it's all said and done, in this Afghan village. They take great care for him. And then the cavalry shows up to extract him out. And we prove once again that the great United States of America will move heaven and earth to go get that one asset. And part of that story, if you go back to episode 2, is Spanky talking about the way in which this crew of 6 Air Force reservists end up as the lead Pave Hawk helicopter with all these other assets to go in and get Marcus. And man, Spanky tells the incredible story, and probably some of it's stuff that you might have known or might not have known being in the back of the bird.
Yeah, right.
Right. So just, I'd love for, if you don't mind, to sort of take us into Josh's, perspective.
Yeah. Right.
View of it.
Yeah. It's like the old, story of 6 blind men feeling an elephant, describing an elephant, and they all describing an elephant, but it's all different parts because they're all feeling different parts of it. So let me back up and just kind of start with, I was a pararescue specialist for 12 years, and I loved being a PJ. It's probably the best job in the military, and I just had a blast doing it. And so I ended up getting into medical school and staying in the reserves in pararescue. And just as I started medical school, my enlistment was coming to an end. So I kind of had to make a decision, do I stay in medical school or stay in the reserves, or do I get out and just start over, with my new career as being a doc? But I just loved being a PJ so much that I decided to re-enlist. And so I re-enlisted in my first month of medical school as a reserve PJ. And that date was September 9th, 2001.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 days later, the world changed and things got
Mm-hmm.
serious, and I was ready to just quit med school. And I was like, look, I possess a skill set that, America's going to need. I'm ready. Like, I've been training for this. Let's go. And so our team got activated and called to active duty, and we were being sent to Turkey because it was right after 9/11. So Afghanistan or Iraq, none of that had kicked off yet. So we were activated and sent to Turkey for Operation Northern Watch. And my teammates knew how hard I had worked to get into medical school. And at a team meeting, they said, hey, why don't you stay behind, stay in school, train up the PJs to come over and get them ready to do that. That way you can stay in school. And I knew what that meant. That meant that longer hours, longer deployments, being away from their families longer. So that selflessness was certainly not lost on me. And I appreciated that more than they know. And so I stayed back, and, the war kicked off, and I'm in med school, and I'm kind of slugging it out in med school. And then 2005, I'm getting ready to graduate, and we get activated again, but this time we're going to Afghanistan. And 2005, it's, right in the middle of it. And so, like I said, it was never lost on me, the sacrifices that they made for me. And so I volunteered. I'm like, look, I graduate May 11th. I'll be ready on the 13th. And so I graduated and literally was on a transport plane to Afghanistan 2 days after graduating. So I know in the intro you said a month later, but it was
right away. Yeah.
But it was like days. I think it was literally 2 days after I graduated, and I was inbound to Kandahar. And when I got to Afghanistan, I was working I was deployed as a pararescue specialist. I wasn't a doc, but technically I had just graduated medical school. So technically I was a doctor. So I volunteered. I walked over to the Kandahar hospital, Army run hospital, and said, hey, I'm a doctor. Is there anything I can do? And they're like, sure, come on in. Right. Cause
they got something for you. Yeah.
Right. A military hospital during wartime is always understaffed. And so, pararescue has a medical background. And so most of the skills I possessed were probably those of a PJ more than a doctor, because I hadn't done an internship. I hadn't done a residency. I hadn't done anything. And so I really got some good mentorship. I got some amazing experience in the Kandahar hospital. only the kind of experience you get as a doctor in wartime, things that you don't normally do. And it was amazing just watching that hospital operate and try and save lives, and the sacrifices that some of those folks had to make that came in. We had a number of mass casualties with people missing limbs, and like just that struggle of I remember the head surgeon, this guy had this arm that was just totally mangled, and he's like, save the life, lose the arm, just cold.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's got to be able to make that decision.
You got to do it. And, right. And so that was a pretty amazing experience. And then toward the end of that deployment, we got a call that a Marine had fallen into a river while on patrol with all of his kit on, and they couldn't find him. And so they deployed us to do a combat swift water rescue. And we searched for days, but couldn't find him. And so we were kind of bummed out about that. And then it was really the end of my deployment. It was June 28th, and I was supposed to be back in Arizona to start my internship on July 1st. And so I'm literally packing up my gear, getting ready to go to board the plane. And I'm kind of imagining my new life, as a doc, because I'm already you got
1 foot out of Afghanistan at that
right.
point.
I'm already transitioning. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be a doc. I'm picturing something between, Scrubs and ER, the TV shows, and and just packing up and just kind of mindless. And then my radio squelches and says, all rescue personnel report to the top. And I found it a little odd, but not completely out of the ordinary. But as soon as I walked in, I knew something was up. You could feel it. I mean, there's just the movement, just the feel in the air. You could tell something bad had happened. And we were briefed that an Army Chinook helicopter had just been shot down, 16 people on board, and we don't know the status of them. And they need us up in Bagram like now. And so that's how we initially heard about this. That's when we were launched on the Chinook shoot down, not on Red Wings.
Yeah. So by that point, the 4 SEALs had been in, they had been compromised, and a crew of 16 went in to go help them, save them. And we lose that crew as well. So that's at the point where then you guys, remember Spanky saying that's the point where you get inserted. So you have no knowledge. I mean, you anticipate, look, the missions we'll be doing while here are rescue, recovery. You anticipate that. But this is the first time you're hearing about what this op was and where you guys are going and who you're ultimately trying to go get.
Right. So I unload my stuff. I get my head back in the game, and we are off to Bagram Air Force Base, a couple hours, maybe an hour flight north on a C-130, and the helicopters follow us. And when we get there, we're briefed that the Chinook was shot down by Taliban forces as they were trying to insert a quick reaction force to rescue this still unknown location of this 4-man SEAL team. And that's the first we heard about Operation Red Wings. So our team got split up, and half did a recovery of the Chinook, and then half went and started searching for the guys from Red Wings. And we searched all night. So the Chinook went in, and the Night Stalkers, they went in during the day. They didn't have cover, right? It was just kind of a quick scramble, and they kind of knew the risks. And unfortunately, it didn't work out for them. And that was pretty devastating, of course. But we decided to fly at night. We use the HH-60 helicopters, and we're smaller and more maneuverable. And so we'd fly at night and just looking for any signs of life. And we searched for a couple of days. We got there on the 28th, we searched the 29th, the 30th, the 1st. And then on the 2nd, and as every day passes, you kind of start to lose a little more and more hope, right? Because you anticipate that, the chance of survival is decreasing. And like you said, we moved heaven and earth to to find those guys. Like all assets were deployed to that site. You know, we had all of the drones, like everything in the Joint Command Center was focused on that. You know, all other operations stopped. And so that was reassuring that, you know, we were doing everything we could to find those guys. And then on the 2nd of July, we get a break, and a village elder delivered a letter to one of the Marine fire bases. And it was from one of the men of Operation Red Wings, Marcus Luttrell. And he said, I'm injured, you know, I'm being sheltered, but the Taliban is trying to get me. I need rescue. And so we had to figure out how we were going to do that. And the commanding officer was a Navy captain, and he wanted the Air Force to put together a rescue package, and the Night Stalkers, the Army Night Stalkers, to put together a package, and then brief it, and then he would decide who would go. And a number of times during this whole thing, I just felt like we were kind of just going through the motions, because this wouldn't really happen. And I don't know if that was more of a defense mechanism about what I might be getting myself into, or what. But often, a number of times, I'm like, yeah, there's no way this is going to happen. Like, there's just too many things going on. Like, we've already lost 16 people. Like, they're not going to send us into this dangerous situation. So the Night Stalkers present their plan, and then we presented our plan. And our plan was to go in at night and use kind of speed and agility,
goggle up and do all that. Yeah.
Right. All at night, try to avoid any contact. Although we knew it was heavily populated with Taliban forces. At that time, they didn't have night vision capabilities. Unfortunately, they do now, but that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
And so we're presenting, and then the Navy captain, I can close my eyes and picture his face, says, Air Force, you got the rescue. And that was probably the first time that trip when I looked around and I was like, holy crap, really? Like, this may actually happen.
Yeah.
And so then we had another meeting to formulate our plan, you know, like who was going to execute this plan. And there was a whole bunch of PJs on station by that time. And there was a group of us, and we all met up, and we knew this was a big deal. Everybody knew that, like, this was kind of a mission of a lifetime, and the margin for error was pretty low. And so once again, you know, we had a team meeting, and when they're kind of deciding, you know, who should be on this mission and who should do what, you know, they looked to me and said I should be, you know, on that bird that picks Marcus up. And part of it, I had to be the fact that I, you know, was clearly the highest trained medical person.
Well, you knew he was going to be in rough shape when you got your hands on him.
Yeah. Right. We knew that.
Need help right away. Yeah.
Yeah. But certainly I wasn't the most senior PJ, and I certainly wasn't the best PJ, not the best operator. But again, I was just humbled that they would choose me to lead that mission. And I like to think they trusted me that I'd get the job done, or they knew how dangerous it was and they liked me the least. I'm not sure which way, but either way, I was chosen to be the team leader for the pickup bird. And then my teammate was actually my roommate, who he and I had never been on a mission before. And so just kind of weird turns of fate, how he and I ended up
how all that works out
on that. Yeah. And so we launched that night, and like Spanky probably told you, it was the largest rescue mission, you know, ever launched for that theater. And we had A-10s, escorts, and AC-130 gunships.
Yeah, gunships and all that. Yeah.
And I remember flying in. It wasn't too long of a flight, but just thinking, you know, like, please let me get through this. You know, let me not disappoint, you know, my teammates, not let my teammates down, and let, you know, I hope we can get Marcus, because I know he's in bad shape. And we knew the Taliban were closing in. I knew we had a really small window to get him. And over the radio, you know, I kept hearing the squelch, you know, the reports, you know, known enemy position, and, you know, to the north and then to the south. And I was like, there's no way they're going to send us into this. It's just too hot. You know, they've already lost 16 people. And I just remember being nervous and just this uneasy feeling. And then wondering kind of curiously if I was more nervous that they would send us in or more nervous that they wouldn't send us in. And then we got the call and they're like, you're cleared to the LZ. And then it was just kind of like locked in and eyes on and time to go to work.
Life upon arrival to the LZ is not ideal. And Spanky recounts the incredible effort. And we've talked about it before. In the movie, Marcus is picked up in the light of day in kind of what looks like an open field in this village. In reality, you're not but feet from the edge of a cliff in the dark of night in what ends up being a brownout. And Spanky talks about seeing this clay pot off in the distance and using that as his guide, as if he's back on the porch of his grandmother's house. And it's incredible. And I'm like, shit, they should have put that in the movie. I mean, that was sounds amazing. From the seat you're sitting in, that arrival to the LZ, which, oh, by the way, all happens probably in the span of about a minute, maybe, this craziness. How much of that do you know is going on, right? What's happening for you in that seat? What are you preparing to do?
Yeah. So I have no seat. We're PJ's in the back. We're essentially cargo. So we're strapped in with a tie down strap, not with a tie down strap, but with an anchor. Mm-hmm. And so we're just sitting on the floor and, we're up comms with the helo and we're seeing what's going on. And I'm looking out and I'm like, where are we landing? Right. Cause I got the same intel that Spanky did. It was supposed to be this big thing. We're supposed to land here. Then the survivor's going to be out at the 2:00 position and everything's going to be hunky dory.
Who are you guys talking to in that moment? Is it the Rangers that are down there securing him? Like who are you in comms with that says he's going to be here? Right. Who's got eyes on him at that point?
Nobody. That's predestined. Okay. That's predetermined. Wow. But we're talking with the A-10s who are lighting up that whole ridge with tracer fire. Yep. We're talking to the C-130s. We're talking to command back at Bagram as well. So there's a whole bunch of noise going on, right? Bagram's the one that ends up clearing us in based on the details from
that alone is incredible.
Right.
All that
amazing.
Movement. Yeah.
Right. Just how you don't get people running into each other. And anyway, I had the easy job up until then, right? I was just a passenger in the back and I was sitting off to the left side and my teammate was on the right side and we're listening to the radio chatter, within the helicopter. And you can hear Spanky say, "Oh, brown out." And then I'm looking right and there's a mountain. And then I'm looking out my window on the left and I don't see anything, right? Because there's a sheer cliff. And I keep thinking, I'm like, where are we going to land? Right. I know there's a bunch of dirt in the air. So we're close to ground somewhere. And then I hear the flight engineer on the right side say, "Stop right." Right. And there was a tone to his voice that, everybody's supposed to remain calm, but you could tell there was a tone like, "Stop right." Like, because we were about to hit that side.
Is that the guy that's up front with him or is that a different guy?
No, that's the different guy. So there's
who was the flight engineer?
I forget what his name is.
Was it the guy that was in Vietnam or is that a different guy?
Yeah.
Right?
Cusick.
There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe you like having that. I'm always amazed. 2005, you got a guy who was in freaking Vietnam.
Yeah.
On the aircraft with you guys, which was part of the story I think is amazing.
Yes, indeed. And so we hear "Stop right." And then I feel this like kind of shift off to the left. And I'm like looking over the cliff and I hear "Stop left." And when we kind of settle in and then just boom, like we drop down. And as soon as I felt the tension come out of those wheels, I was like, go, go, go. And so my teammate threw open the door and he was out and I was out right behind him. But with all the dust and the dirt, the chaos, the cliffs and everything, the survivor's supposed to be at the 2:00 position, but there's nothing at the 2:00 position. There's no way. And so we're scrambling. We're on night vision goggles, with the dirt and the dust. And we know there's bad guys in the area. And we see off to the 6:00 by the rotor, 2 figures approaching. I'm like, good guy, bad guy. I don't know how many times I said that, good guy, bad guy. And, I brought my weapon up and safety's off and good guy, bad guy. Then I see that they're in Afghani garb. There's two of them, a big guy and a smaller guy, both in Afghani garb, the white kind of the man dress that they wear. Good guy, bad guy. I don't know yet. And I'm like, I can't let them get to the helicopter, right? Because they could have a grenade, they could have an IED, whatever. So my finger's on the trigger. I'm taking the tension out of my trigger, and I see that one of them's got a rifle. So I'm aiming at the big one with the rifle, and good guy, bad guy, good guy, bad guy. And then I hear, oh, it's your precious cargo. I'm like, whew. Right. Safety on, weapon down. And like my teammate authenticates them. There's two of them, like in the movie, they had the big scene with the kid, and they're like, oh, right. Yeah. Like, we don't have time to sort this out. Like, so we grab them both, we authenticate them, and we pull them on board, and then we're like, go, go, go. And Spanky takes off and gets out of there. And oftentimes this is the most dangerous part of the rescue. Because like in Vietnam, they would lay what they call a SAR trap, where they'd let you land, they'd let you recover your survivor. And then as you're taking off, they blow you out of the sky. And so everybody's head was on a swivel, and, high tension, high tense environment right there. And, we're scanning, we're making sure, the A-10s are doing their thing. And we get up, and once we clear that ridge, we start working on Marcus. And I just remember looking at him and just thinking, man, I've never seen anybody look so beat up and tired. I mean, he just, broken. Like, he was just so tired looking. And,
I mean, so it's one thing, right? Like, it's one thing to have survived the firefight alone, to go through everything his body physically goes to. I think he bit his tongue in half. Right. He goes through all this incredible, just physical wear and tear, then to arrive to the village and have whatever happened to him there. And then within seconds of potentially finger all the way through the trigger, if you don't know who they are in that moment.
Right.
It's absolutely incredible. And it's part of the story that, that every time I hear it, I just get chicken skin, because it's like, even till the last moment before you actually get your hands on them, you're still never sure you're going to be able to get them. So take me back in, right? Like, just because he's a big dude, right? But when you got him on the bed of that Pavehawk and you guys are out there, how rough a shape was he? We can see in the movie what it's like, but I'm sure that doesn't even do it justice.
No. And so once again, there are no beds, in the back of a HH-60 Air Force helicopter there. He's on the floor, just with us as well. Right. And so we're just checking him out, making sure, vital signs, everything are okay. And we're flying him to a Marine fire base to transload him to a C-130 to get him to the hospital. Right. And so we finally land in Jalalabad, I think it was. And then
so
finally
you had to drop his dude off, because we all remember there's you grabbed
two dudes, right?
You grabbed two dudes, right? One's a SEAL, the other one's not. The little guy wasn't supposed to be with you.
No.
Right.
So we dropped him at a fire base as well.
Yeah.
And that's funny. I don't remember if it was the same fire base or not. Anyway, when we got Marcus to the fire base, the C-130 was waiting there. We were going to hand him off, transload him to the flight surgeon, and just kind of say goodbye there. As we're getting him out of the helicopter, he looks down at me and he's like, "Hey man, I want to try and walk to the C-130.
Like, bro, we got you, man. Like, not necessary.
I look up and I'm like, all right, man, whatever you want. Cause I did not want to have to try and carry him. He's a beast. He was probably down 20, 30 pounds from where he was, but he's still, probably 250 pounds.
I've only ever seen him once in person, and it was at a big conference, but he walked by and I was able to very nicely, give a shoulder tap. Hey man, just great to meet you. Thank you for everything. And I was like, whoa.
He's a big dude. Yeah. I just saw him, June 28th, in fact, at the Michael Murphy Navy SEAL Museum. Yeah, he looks great, so
he's done incredible.
All
right. So after all, right. So finally, you've delivered him, right?
Yeah.
Now the next evolution takes him. You're sort of done with that part. We talked to Spanky about it. At what point do you sit and finally take a breath and say, holy hell, like, look at what we just did?
Yeah, that's about the time. As soon as we got him into the hands of that flight surgeon, like we all just kind of exhaled, like you said, and thank the powers that be, that we were able to deliver that. But little did we know that was only the first half of our adventure. When Marcus got rescued and was debriefing everybody, then we knew the fate of the rest of the men of Operation Red Wings, and we knew that next would be a recovery mission. And so he told us the location of Michael Murphy and Danny Dietz, who were in the same place, and Matt Axelson, who was a little bit farther away. And so once again, we planned to go in at night and recover those guys. And we went in on the 4th of July. And I was skeptical, I was nervous going in on the 2nd of July to get Marcus, but really I didn't have such a negative attitude toward that first mission as I did the second one. I had a bad feeling about it. It was the 4th of July, just like setting up the storyline. I kept thinking about Pat Tillman.
You just pulled off an incredible miracle to go get the one guy too.
Right. And now we're pushing our luck and
back again. Like,
the Taliban.
But we got to go, but you got to go. Well, we can't leave them there.
They know we're coming. They know where we're going to be, right? Because they know where the bodies are. And they're pissed because we just snatched the live SEAL that had killed a bunch of their teammates and brothers right out from under them. So I had a bad feeling about this mission. And this mission was going to be different because we couldn't land because they were on such a steep slope that we had to just hold our hover and put the hoist down and recover them that way. So one ship, we were 2 ship again. One ship would hover and the other would fly around drawing fire, right? So we could get them out. And to, I don't know if Spanky mentioned this part, but to make us as light as possible, we took
no guns,
everything that we didn't need, we took out. Yeah. So the miniguns, all the ammo, but also the Kevlar flooring, like that stuff is heavy. But we decided that we were going to go without it because it really weighed us down. And so we had no protection. We were 100% reliant on, the weapons that we carry, our personal, M4s that, aren't going to do much in a helicopter, and then all of the support ships. And so I remember watching the tracer fire as we're going in and thinking, these are the coolest 4th of July fireworks ever, but they're going the wrong way, right?
They're show them what's up. Yeah.
They're going down instead of up, which I guess is fortunate. And so we ended up getting Michael Murphy and Danny Dietz on that mission and bringing them up and then covering them in the flag as soon as we got them up, and then bringing them back to Bagram Air Force Base, where we were met by practically the entire base, the chaplain services and everybody just repatriated. It was something to see. And
we got Axe a little bit later, right? So actually,
a couple of days later, and I wasn't in on that. On that mission.
Help me with the details, right? There's an American on the ground with the bodies, right? Has secured them.
A Ranger team.
And if I'm not mistaken, the guy who found and was with Murph, I think spent a couple days with him.
Yeah.
Day or 2 with him. But then you drop in, pick him up, put your hands physically on him, and carry him up into the helicopter. Is that how that kind of work? How's that work?
Yeah. So we lowered the hoist with a basket, right? With the Stokes basket.
Yep.
Right. And then put him and Danny both at the same time, and then brought them up and then got them on board. And then we left the Ranger team with, there was PJs.
They got to get out of there. They got to get out of there too.
I know.
Yeah.
They were kind of pissed. They're like, wait, I thought you were sending a big helicopter. And we're like, no, sorry. So they were in the field like for days after that as well.
Those guys are incredible. I mean, that's another part of the story I want to tell at some point. So if you know those guys, we'd love to tell their story as well, because I think that's a pretty incredible part of the story.
Yeah, for sure.
Humble servant, right? That guardian.
There. Yeah.
What's the weight and the emotion of seeing that hoist come back in, seeing that basket come back up and taking off, knowing we got these guys off the battlefield and we're taking them home where they belong?
Yeah. It sounds cliche, but you don't really think that at the time, right? It's after all the business is done that you can kind of sit back and reflect and just kind of absorb what had happened and what had transpired. Another reason why that 4th of July mission I had such a bad feeling about it is that the day before we had what's called a ramp ceremony for the Chinook crew. So everybody lines up on the flight line and they bring the caskets out, each in a Humvee, a flag draped casket, and they load it on the C-141, I think it was, and take them to, stateside. And so everybody turned out for that ceremony, and I'm watching as 16 Humvees go by each with a flag draped casket on it, and just wondering, is there going to be another one of these ramp ceremonies in a couple of days? So that really brought the severity of the situation home, right? Because I'm sure when those guys launched, they weren't anticipating that happening. And it just really hammered home, how vulnerable we are, and really how, I don't know, luck, I don't know what you call it.
Yeah.
But
divine intervention, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Things intercede. Yeah.
It was not lost on me. And the fact that I'm standing here talking to you today is not lost on me. I feel a responsibility. You could see, even so many years later, it still affects me. I feel a responsibility to those guys. And really that was how Memorial Day Murph was born.
Yeah.
Was really that desire for me to make some sort of sense of all the death and, all the just disrupted families, all the heartbreak for what, and especially with the abandonment, for lack of a better term, of Afghanistan. It's really been hard on me. And that's really why I'm coming out and I'm talking about this, because people need to know that that's not who we are, that we risk everything to get those guys, and that we don't abandon people. Like, I know we did in Afghanistan. And it's hard to fight that.
I know. I've had a few conversations with folks and feel very honored to have that. And you think about what the last year has been like, and our heart goes out, because it's like after 20 years, after seeing those movements, I know, and Josh, we don't take for granted here, right, what it means for you to go into the space and talk about it. And so our listeners sit in with attentive ear and a grateful heart just to take the time, right, and do it. So we don't take it for granted either. So it's a few years removed from this. It's not by accident that we put the Murph shirt on today, right? I've been a loyal Murph participant for years. So the workout's there, right? Guys are doing this 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, 1 mile run in a weighted vest to be the standard. But at what point is it like, let's make this a thing? Let's do a thing here. Tell me about the genesis of that, because I think it's incredible your role in that.
It's been amazing. I'm an ER doc. I've done a number of things. Being involved with the genesis and creation of this American tradition has been the greatest thing that I've ever done. Right. It's so uniting. And it's so amazing to watch that. I'm completely humbled that it has gotten as big as it has. But when I got back, I started my internship, and I was, as quickly as I was in Afghanistan, I was back and into a medical internship, which is a great way to to delve into something so you can completely not think about what the hell just happened to you. And so I was knee deep in that. And then I started doing CrossFit in 2007. And the CrossFit gym had this Hero Wad board on it. And I was like, oh, Murph. I was like, I wonder if that has anything to do with Michael Murphy. And so I looked it up and I was like, sure enough, Michael Murphy. And so I told the owner of the gym, I was like, hey, that Murph thing, like I was kind of involved with, and he thought that was really cool. And so we did Murph on Memorial Day. Or actually, I did it on Memorial Day. There was like a Hero Wad, and I picked Murph to do on Memorial Day. And usually Memorial Days for me had kind of been sad and depressing, like I'd end up just drinking and sitting around and, kind of feeling sorry for myself. And, but not this Memorial Day. This Memorial Day, I went out and I busted it out, and I was exhausted, right? It's a verb, you were Murphed, like you felt Murphed.
Oh
right?
Yeah. Every time.
And it was amazing. And I was like, I'm going to get people to do this. And so next year we had the whole, like everybody at the gym do it, just to see if we could recreate kind of that vibe that I got. And it was, it was synergistic, right? Cause everybody's cheering for each other and rooting for each other. And that's when I knew, I was like, this is something.
Yeah.
And that was in New York. And then we moved, my wife and I got married and we moved to Tucson, Arizona. And so I brought the idea of Memorial Day Murph to that gym to see if we could recreate it and see. And then, so we did it as a gym, I think it was probably 2009. And then again in 2010. And I was like, this needs to be a national thing like this.
Yep.
It is just such a cool experience that I think people would be behind it. And so I had plans to just use Facebook and the CrossFit network to get the word out. But I wanted to touch base with Mike Murphy's dad, Dan.
Yeah. Yep. Incredible.
I was like, if I'm going to do anything in his son's name, I'd like to get his blessing. And so I contacted him, and I had never talked to him before. I don't remember ever being so nervous talking to somebody.
I felt the same way. I felt the same way. Yep.
Right. And just, but he's just so gracious, and, any sort of information he could get about his son. And so I told him, that when we got him on board, he was covered with the flag and this and that. And then of course, it's like, oh, by the way, I got this thing, everybody's trying to sell him something. And so I pitched it to him, and I said, I'm not going to do this without your agreement, right? Without your concurrence. And so he said, let me see if I got this right. You're going to ask people to pay to do Michael's workout at their own gym. I'm like, yeah. He's like, yeah, good luck with that. He's like,
yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I don't know if he thought I was harmless or I don't know. Anyway, I just spoke at the Michael Murphy golf tournament, and I told that story about like how he thought, like, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. Go ahead with that.
They've also recently cut the ribbon on the Navy SEAL Museum as well.
Yep, that was part of that trip.
Sweet, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so that first year, with nothing but a Facebook page and word of mouth through the CrossFit community, we had like 7,000 people do it. And this is being run by just my wife and I. Like we're packing T-shirts, and we're like, and so the next year we do it, there was over 10,000 people, and we had just had twins. And my wife looks at me lovingly over stuffing these shirts in this bag. And she's like, we're not doing this again next year.
We're going to need a bigger boat.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's when we partnered up with the guys from Forged. Mike Sauer, awesome dude. He's a teammate of Mike Murphy's. And so it was just a natural transition. And then we kind of worked together that year. And then the year after that, they just completely took it over. because they had all of the, they had the logistics, they had everything that they needed. And so that's when they made the transition to the Murph Challenge, just kind of put their own spin on it. And it's been amazing. Like to say 1 million people do it, I don't know, but probably like
tens of thousands, if not more. And what I love so much about it, Josh, and listen, I'll be honest with you guys, it's a free plug. I've been a huge Forged fan before I even started doing the Murph Challenge. Like I love their shirts. I love their clothing. Their shirts all fit comfortable. I got the old school legend shirt for Chris Kyle. Like I've always liked their stuff.
Yeah.
And I also know, better known, these guys have been through the fires. The least I can do is support a business like this. So I've just always been a fan, right, of what they do.
Yeah.
But then you take this on top of it, and I think it's done a few things. It's created an incredible community. Yep. And it's created a chance for us to unite across physical limitations. We do our Murph every year, most years that I'm with my F3 buddies, Fitness Fellowship and Faith. Yep. Right? We always do a Murph together. If we're at the beach, we're meeting at the park and we're doing it there, right? If we're back in our local area, same thing. We're finding some pull-up bars and we're doing that. We're sharing in that suffering together. Now we're doing it with thousands and thousands of people across the world together. And at the same time, we're doing it to honor not just Mike,
right?
But yeah, he's a big, but it's really for all of us. And it becomes, I think, the perfect way for, I mean, what can I do on Memorial Day? I don't know any Gold Star families or anybody that's lost anyone in combat. Cool. Here's what you can do. Get up, strap up, get after it.
Right.
Can you do that? Yeah, man, I can do it. Can you do some I don't know if I can do 100. Can you do some version of this? Yeah. Get up, strap it up. Let's go.
Yeah.
And it unites people to go do something, gives you something to do. And it takes you out of it and it puts the focus on those who have made that ultimate sacrifice for it.
Right. Something bigger than yourself.
Absolutely.
It allows people to just give a little, right? And just be a part of it. And just, I always say, if it sucks, if you think it sucks, then you're doing it right.
Absolutely.
Because that's really the point of it, is just to go out and put in some effort. And I always say you don't have to be a Navy SEAL to do it. I said, it helps, but you don't have to be a Navy SEAL to do it. And you don't have to do all of it. Like I can make a Murph for anybody. A couple of years ago, I had my dad out here. He's 90. He did a Murph. I had my 9-year-old twins. So we had from 9 to 90 doing a Murph. And it sucked across the spectrum, but they all did it and they were all part of it. So it's just amazing to be a part of. And like you mentioned, it's worldwide. There's, I get emails and pictures from all over. We were in Germany last year and my cousin was like, oh yeah, it's a Murph challenge. I was like, what? How do you know about Memorial Day Murph? And this year I got, one of the docs I work with, her brother is a SEAL reservist who is a contractor over in Ukraine right now.
Yep, gotcha.
And he sent me a picture of him and his Ukrainian buddies doing Murph on Memorial Day. I'm like you guys don't have enough to do. It just speaks to the impact that it has on people. It's a sense of community, and really like with F3, it's just part of that, like being a part of something bigger than yourself.
Yeah. And I think in today's day and age, guys, you're likely going to have to go out and seek it out. Right. Yeah. But don't let the world tell you you're this or that, and we're divided because of this and everybody else sucks. I promise you that's not really the case. We are all a part of something bigger than ourselves. It's why we do this. It's why we do this here. It's why we share these stories, to show you that there are people that go above and beyond through service, purpose, and impact because they're part of something bigger than themselves. And I think this thing has taken off because it strikes that chord.
Yep.
Which I think is just pretty cool about it.
It is. Yeah. Like I said, it's of all the things I've done, I'm most proud of being a part of that. And it's just, like I said, humbling. I do it every year. I don't know. It's like 17 years.
It's amazing.
Every year and I wear that same body armor that I used to recover Murph, and I did all the rescue stuff. And I wear that partially to remember, and partially because it's not quite 20 pounds. It's more like 16 pounds.
You looked around to make sure.
I'm like, don't tell anybody as I'm on a podcast.
But by the time you have your shoes on and everything else, and you're going to the standard of your equipment, I'll tell you what, at minimum, there are 2 days a year where I'll do the Murph, if not more, but at minimum.
Yeah.
June 28th.
Okay.
Right, in Memorial Day. My birthday is June 28th.
Oh, wow.
So when I talked at the front end of the show about that connection to Red Wings, I just feel a personal sense of duty, and I wasn't even connected to it.
Yeah.
Like you were.
Yeah.
And so all my F3 buddies know, if Jodis is queuing an F3 workout on June 28th on his birthday, look out, good chance we're heading a mile down the road and we're going to find a place to do some pull-ups. And then, so just be ready on 28 June, because we're coming in hot with it there. And then we'll come back, we'll have done it Memorial Day. You can do it again after that. So I look for those 2 days to take a little time and remember those guys specifically, but I think it speaks to the broader too.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Thousands of Americans who have laid it down for us. So you and I can sit here today and do this.
Right. And Dan Murphy's the first to say that, he's like, Michael wouldn't want this to be about him, right. But certainly the front man for this whole thing. I don't think we could have had a better representation of selflessness and sacrifice than Mike Murphy. And the guy's just,
well, and Dan, so we had Mr. Murphy on episode 25 of the show. So if you guys are
I didn't know that. Yeah.
If you're new to this, and listeners, if you're new, go back to 25. You can listen to Dan Murphy, his perspective on, when Mike told him, hey, I want to be a SEAL and I want to do all these things. And, Dan says, you could die. And Mike's like, yeah, I know, but I'm not just going to sit here. And then Mr. Murphy's incredible perspective on, what could have happened in the battlefield. And he says, look, Mike did what he did. Marcus did what he did. And if Marcus had not survived, the story doesn't get out. Mike isn't a Medal of Honor recipient. Like, all those things happen for a purpose. And so they're just, their family's incredible purpose behind this is just, it's inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. And once again, when Dan asked me to be the keynote speaker for the Mike Murphy golf tournament, like, how do you say no? But
sure,
not really something I'm comfortable with. And that's kind of part of my thing is like, you got to do things that you're not comfortable, that make you uncomfortable. And so public speaking it's turned into more of something that I enjoy. Clearly you and I are talking now, but
well, hopefully we made you a little uncomfortable today.
I try and get uncomfortable at least once every day.
Yeah. You have to go seek it. Right, Joe? We got to go see it. It's why I get up at 4:30 every morning. Right. It's why I'm out working out at 5. Like, I need a little something to bristle me up a little bit because the day is going to throw a bunch of shit at you. Like, the day is going to throw a lot of stuff at you. So let me go throw something at myself.
And if we're not used to adversity, the first thing that takes us out of our routine completely knocks the wheels off and we're down in the ditch. So I like I said, I look forward as well and try and get uncomfortable at least once a day. I say my phrase is, we live at 72 and fluorescent. And that used to be, because we used to work, like I work in a hospital and every day it's 72 and fluorescent, but it's really morphed into more like a state of mind where people live at that constant state of 72 and fluorescent. They're not out challenging themselves. They're not doing things that make them uncomfortable. Do something that you suck at. When's the last time you sucked at something? I suck at things all the time, but just not getting comfortable and not getting into that routine. Cause then I think the malaise sets in and then I feel like there's just especially among men these days, that there's just a national malaise or fatigue that, things like F3, I think are hitting that right where it needs to be. And Murph, the Murph Challenge is a piece of that as well. And I think that's why things like F3 and the Murph Challenge are so popular, that men are looking for something. And I'm glad they are, right? And I'm glad we can provide some of that.
Amen. Well said. Josh, this has been just an absolute thrill, man, a total honor. And man, again, like I say, we don't take it for granted, right? To sit in the chair, to remember those memories, but we're grateful, and it's important, something we need to do. I'm just grateful for you, man.
Hey, thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell this story. It's not easy. It's not comfortable, but I think especially these days it needs to get out there. And if I can help inspire somebody to get up and go do the Murph Challenge or go come to one of your workouts, then my job is done. So thank you for what you guys do and giving me the platform.
You're welcome here anytime, brother. It's Josh Appel.
That's
Brian
me.
Curtis. That's right. That's been this episode of Pick Up the Six podcast.